All right, we're back. Doing a bit of a late night stream tonight. This has been one of those sorts of days. We're gonna pick up here, adding enemy types. If you'll recall, we had all this worked out where we could have our little guy run around and take damage and get healed up. Whoop, get hurt, jump down, grab more hearts, got that little particle effect. Good times. We have this little tiling test sprite here as our pseudo enemy. We're gonna go ahead and do him up right, turn him into a real bad guy. So, as a tradition, let's see what we can do about getting an asset pack. And drag that in here. That not gonna work tonight, not just click and drag straight from the browser in. Alright. Try again. Import asset package. Yes, please. Add all. Thank you. Import. Okay. So now we have enemy 2. Lovely. Okay.
The Windy Woods template in GameMaker has a character system used by the player and the enemy. There is only one enemy in the template, so let's expand it by adding a second enemy. This enemy, instead of walking normally, will jump towards the player, who can then either jump on top of it to defeat it or go below it.
Oh man, I can tell already there's going to be a lot of custom work on this. They do this weird thing where it's like part of this Windy Woods tutorial series is on like the fully built out thing. And then another part of it is just like, we're going to start from scratch. Here's a couple of sprites. We'll see what happens.
Create a new project and use the Windy Woods template, give it a name here, and click on Let's Go. You need some assets for this tutorial, so go ahead and download them from the link in the description. Then in GameMaker, go under Tools, click on Import Local Package, and then select the asset package that you just downloaded. You will see this, where you just need to click on Add All and then Import. Create a new object and name this obj_enemy2. I'll drag it and put it inside objects, characters, and enemies. This is the same place where we have our first enemy object. Now in the object editor, set the sprite for your new object to SPR enemy2 walk. The character system used in this project uses GameMaker's parenting system, where one object can be the parent of another object.
This is something I do need to learn a lot more about, is when to use parents and children. Because like it's a little bit conflated for me with instances and objects. And I think from a conceptual standpoint, an instance is one representation of that object, and then a parent is an object and a child is an object with regardless of instances, and that children inherit things from their parents. I guess I struggle to know like when you would want to do that. I guess I could see it if you had like goblins as an enemy type and they all had like a pack tactics type sort of trait, right? And you want that to get inherited all the way across. If you make one change, you want to make it all across all of them all at the same time. I could see that, maybe.
The child object then gets all the behavior of the parent object. So open the parent menu, then
All right, right on.
then click here.
So we are making this a parent, and we're choosing an object. Oh dear. It's going to be using the original enemy as a parent, isn't it?
Set the parent for this object to obj enemy parent.
Yeah.
That object has all the code that handles the movement and interactions of the enemy. Now in your asset browser, under Rooms, open RM level 1, which is the first level in this project. In the Layers panel, make sure the Instances layer is selected.
So I guess in the meantime, I can choose tiling test as this parent because that's going to inherit that collision with a player event of giving invulnerability timers and decrementing lives. I've been thinking about this. It would be great to like bump the player back a little bit, and I could have sworn I remember seeing something about that in this GML. Yeah, add motion maybe? What happens if I do this? Direction. Add motion. Accelerates the instance with the given speed in the given direction. Is 1 and -1, are those the things? Oh, image. So what we're gonna want is X object player. Ugh. Jiminy Christmas. Object player dot X speed. What was our move speed? Move speed? What was our variable here that we? Oh, that's lives player. Oh, that's right. We've got step on its own. So we've got move X. That's what the kids are calling it nowadays. Move X, the old move X. Move underscore X. Times -1. Will that work? And set the speed to like 10. So it'll like kind of push them back for just a little bit, maybe? I could see this going disastrously wrong depending on how this functions. Okay, well, that's our first problem. So it needs to apply to other, so it's actually applying to the player and not the wow. All right, let's tune that down a little bit. Whoa, okay. So not good. All right, that's not working. Yep. That's kind of what I was afraid of, is that it wouldn't ever clear. So can I then set I want to make move X equal to let's see. I want to flip move X, right? So we want to assign move X is equal to times -1 relative. Oh, hi there. Hey, wife quest, how you doing? All right. Nope, totally breaking. Okay, major crash. move X is not set before reading it. Oh, because we're setting it to itself and not other. Son of a biscuit. Keep forgetting that. Okay. So, we have successfully not crashed the game. Hooray! You need a mural behind your desk. I couldn't agree more. And here's the problem. This is much more comfortable for me looking this way. Because like most of my monitor is over here that I'm looking at. But the camera, if it's pointing this way, it's going to see all this junk over here. So I have to have it more this way, but then if I'm doing this, the tutorial's like way off to my right here instead of straight ahead. There's improvements that can be made here for sure, because this just looks really uncomfortable for everyone. Not good framing. Okay, and then I have to like kind of like lean over here and distort myself while looking over here and... All right. So, that's not working. And so OG player, oh, it doesn't have any collide events. It's all happening with the enemy type. Interesting. How do I bounce you back? I'm really curious about this. Oh, set animation speed. Okay, time to ADHD bounce onto a new thing. I want to go to the step event. And I think I'm going to do an if over here. If move X is equal to 0, then stop the animation. Set animation speed to 0. Is that gonna work? So the thought is, he's not constantly running anymore, but he is not running anymore either. Oh, and he can't pick stuff up anymore. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So... what is happening here? If move X is equal to 0, set animation speed to 0. Oh, and you know what? I'm not resetting it, I think is the problem. So we need an else. Else. Animation speed is 1. There we go. Try that. So shouldn't be running, and now running. Now the problem is he's not resetting to like frame 0. And I'm curious. I mean, there's gotta be a way to do that, right? Fitness is variable set sprite. Set sprite? What's a sequence? Let's see. What if I search for animation? Yeah, it's the only thing that I get. So what happens if I just like reset the sprite back to player? Yeah, I mean, that kind of works. I mean, it's not like the smoothest thing ever. Like this guy. Let's see if we can scrub and find yeah. See, that's what it should be looking like. So is there... I wonder if that's a unique sprite. I wonder if they're setting it to like an idle state sprite. And then when they move, swap out to like a walking sprite. Because if we jump into the animation, yeah, no. There is no frame where the character looks like he does in that video. So that must be a different sprite. So that must be how they're doing it. So that's interesting. That's something that we learned, is that so your different states with your sprites should probably be different, or your different states for each character should probably be different sprites. So like your idle animation is a sprite, your walking animation is a sprite, Your attack animation is a sprite. Your super move is a sprite, and you're going to be swapping through those sprites really, 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 really fast in really any game. That's really interesting. Okay, what were we trying to do before this? We were trying to do something with enemies. Oh yeah, we're trying to make them bounce backward on hit. I want to bounce backward on hit. With this function, you can command an instance to bounce off all instances within the room, with the only exception being those that have no sprite or mask index assigned to them. You can also tell it to use precise collision checking when enabled. That's not really what we want. What about move bounce solid? Command an instance to bounce off only those instances marked as solid within the room. You can also tell it to use precision. Okay. I want to bounce. So try this again. What would happen if we just copied all this? So we take everything from if object at place and the move and collide, and then we're just gonna copy it over into here. And then we're gonna set it all inside of the getting hit if. So, and then we're gonna get rid of the if object at place. Oops. Okay, so that is deleting everything inside of the if. That's not good. Because what we really want is assigning the move y right. If object place, if key down, v key space, move underscore y equals minus jump speed. Okay, so we can get rid of this. Actually, no, I think we do want to set this to 0 because what I'm assuming is going to happen here is that if our character jumps and hits a bad guy without like jumping on top of them to kill them, if they slam into the side, then that move Y, if it's not reset to 0, could be at like 5 when it hits them, and then we'll subtract more minus that, and so it'll like kind of add, it'll multiply onto it, not multiply, but it'll add onto it instead of kind of just being a clean hit, boing, and then the bounce being a predictable amount of bounce. If we don't reset it, then the speed at which we bounce will be dependent upon the speed at which they hit the thing, and that can be kind of hard to predict, which probably would not make for a great experience. So we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. We don't really care if they're on the ground for this. And then we can delete this else because the gravity is being handled elsewhere. And then we want to set another variable of move x equal to move x times -1. And this is probably going to scream at me if I don't make these part of the player object. Hold on. Pretty sure this is not going to be right. Player.move equals obj.player.move. Okay, so it looks like it will work, probably. But I could probably just delete all that and have it be the same thing, right? So let's live preview. Player.moveY plus equals negative jump speed. So if we uncheck that, equals minus It may be late. My brain may not be working. Let's just do it the way that we are more confident will work. So then, obg player dot move y minus jump speed, and then, oops. Okay. So we have move x equals move x times -1, so it'll flip our direction, and move y equals move y minus jump speed. So that will move them upwards because the numbering starts at the upper left corner. Whoop, this way. And so it'll start here, and then if we minus it, it goes up. Okay, got it. Yep. We're gonna move obj dot player underscore dot move x. No, obg underscore player. Obg underscore player dot move x and dot move y. Okay. Theoretically, this will move us in the opposite direction and up. Will it compile? Is the first question. Yes, it does compile. What will happen? Nope. It's moving the box. Okay. What's going on? So, why is it affecting... Oh, because move collided set to self. Son of a biscuit. I even thought I need to make sure that I remember to change that. Okay, but it's still affecting it. Oh, but you know what? I think it's moving me too, right? Yeah, I'm like bouncing on top of it. It is also moving, which I'm curious about. I don't know why it's moving. Can I set a breakpoint in... Toggle breakpoint? Ooh, is that gonna work? Are we debugging? No. All right. Can you use debugger in GameMaker with GML? I don't have those in my version. Let's see here. I am not... Oh, debug. Okay. Yeah, it's still not stepping. Bugger window. Oh, this is the toolbar that it's talking about. Got it. Okay. Okay. So the problem is I still don't know how to debug, how to like breakpoint into GML. Can I put a breakpoint on that? It looks like I might be able to. So let's go to toggle breakpoint. Yeah, we're debugging, y'all. Awesome. Okay. So we now have successful debugging. So we have the invulnerability just got set to 1. Our health has been decremented by 1. And we can move into, right? We're going to set the alarm now. So alarm 0 is being set for a time of 30. And then we are setting our character to be 50% transparent. So as soon as I click this button or hit F11, we should turn transparent. Okay, not quite yet. What if it like happens next frame or something? So with other, OBG player dot move y should equal 0. Okay, so it's reaching that. Is there a way we can like move y is now 0? So that has happened. We have reset our move y. So next up, our move x. Move x is 0. Oh, so we need to check if they're at a standstill. Like if they're just dropping straight down, then we need to set it like a negative thing. So if move x equals 0, set it to negative something, and I could actually see the use case for like a variable to store most recently moved in direction, and using that and reversing it. Setting a direction and a reverse direction each time they move. I could see that. Okay, so that's the problem. So move x right now is 0, and we're gonna move in. It's still gonna be 0. Okay, negative 0. And then our move speed is 0, and it should become negative 16. So it's like we get another jump. That's actually a lot. We should probably like half that. But now it should be negative 16. And then we're going to move negative 0x and negative 16y. Draw self. Draw text. We're going to step out of this function. There we go. So now, okay. Player move y is at negative 16, move x negative 0. So there we go. Now what's curious is that the sprite is moving at all. So, okay, 2 things we need to deal with from this. First off, checking if player's move x is 0. And if it's move 0, if it's at 0, set it to negative something. So let's move this down. We'll drop in an if obj player. Well, I guess we can just say move x and apply it to other, right? If other move x is equal to 0, then we will simply set it. Probably don't need that, do we? Just set it to like -4. So if move x equals 0, set move x equal to -4. Else, do that. Flip the direction. Let's try that. Okay. So it is not really happening. Oh, the box started moving diagonally though. That's fun. Oh wait, no, I keep hitting play, but what we really want is debug. Try this again. Okay. So we are going to step into move y is 0, and it's gonna get set to 0. And then move x is equal to itself but flipped, so it's now -4, so it should become +4. Okay. So what's interesting is that y is working pretty much exactly the way we'd expect. But x is not. -4 is now -4. Why? Move x equals move x times -1. That should just flip the direction. Okay. What's going on here? Let the debugger grab all that it needs to. um move x. Move x is going to be either 1 or -1. Right? Move x is 1 or -1. Oh, you know what? We may need to wrap. We may also need to declare another variable, which is like no player control, right? We need to be able to say, sorry, you just got stunned because you got hit. You don't get to have input for a tenth of a second. Until for you need to have the recovery. How can I do that? Oh, you know what? I think I can just wrap all of this in an if alarm at 0 is greater than 15 or less than, and then we can wrap everything inside here. Oh no, we want these initializations outside. So we can dump all of this stuff in here. That's how that was situated, right? Oh no, what's going on? Yes, it was in line with the object ground. Did I not control Shift Z? Ugh. Alright, so move U1 in, move U1 in, move U1 in, move U1 in. U in. Okay, let's try that. So what should this change do? This change should make it so I can't change any directions. I can't send any input if our alarm that triggers when we get hit is over a certain threshold. That is to say, if there is so much time left on the alarm, then don't do any of this stuff. Only if the alarm is shorter than this. So, yeah, okay, see that? We're kind of moving along, and then chunk, and then moving along, chunk. That's meaning that it's working. Now, we still have this weird thing how the box is still moving. Oh. So why is the box moving? Why does the box move? I mean, it's... What happens if I get rid of this stuff, right? Because we're already referring to other. Let's try again. Debugger. F5. Oh, no, not F5. It is F6. Restart the game. Excuse you. Restart the game, please. Fine. We'll quit and restart. Man, it takes a long time to record all this data on such a simple thing after the debugger quits. Okay. Debug. Okay. So what change did we just make? We just changed it. Oh, right. So hopefully now, since this is referring to other, which should be referring to the player, it should be working. Error has occurred. Yeah, it's referring to object tiling test move Y. So I mean, is other wrong? Should it be self? Man, I never get when to use self or other. It feels like it flips constantly of like when to use. But it has to be other because this is set to other and that's working. It's got to be other. Everything here has to be other, right? And then get rid of OBJ player. Move underscore x times equals times -1. And you're set to other as well. I mean, that should do it, right? Yeah, it's still variable object tiling test move underscore y, not set before reading it. At GML object tiling test collision object player, line 113. Which, of course, is very borked from the live preview. Move and collide. Object ground. So this is referring, for some reason, to tiling test. Why on earth? I mean, that's the thing that I don't understand is, I mean, okay, let's set it to a specific object. Let's set it specifically to the player. Will that fix it? No. It's still saying we're trying to move tiling test move Y. Even if we have it set specifically to move the player. Maybe we just get rid of that. I mean, we shouldn't need it, right? Because we're setting the variables. And then in the step, it should just read the variable, right? Oh, this isn't debug mode. What's the keyboard? Oh, there's no keyboard shortcut for stop. Okay. Debug. Okay. So, object player dot move y is equal to 0, which is the way that that's exactly what it should be. Move x is -4. Oh, and we're setting it again to -4, right? Yep. We just happened to pick the perfect variable to make it blend in. Okay. All right. I get what that problem is then. Now, well, it's not triggering that. Wait, no, it is. For some reason, our move y is now -16. But we're not supposed to be moving, right? Okay. Step over. Step out of. There we go. That's our problem. So we are in a new frame. We have checked that we're not holding in any keyboard input anymore because we're debugging, and so we reset it. And that move. Okay, so I have an idea. The problem is the move function is happening way down at the end here. And I'm wondering, what if we just move it up Be right on top of those. And then we copy this and put it in the... Wait, no, we have all this set in the create step. Success! So, the problem was we were moving, or we were changing the velocity of X and Y, the speed, the amount to move. We were changing that. And then we were trying to move the the enemy. For whatever reason, we could not get that to change, to not apply to the enemy. I don't know if that's a limitation of GML or if that's just how that function works. I don't know. But we could not get that to apply to the player. So when we removed that, okay, great. Now we are assigning variables for the X and Y to the player. But then, in the next step, those variables are getting reinitialized. And so it didn't matter. We were setting it like we were setting speed. We were setting the Y movement to be move up, and then within the next frame, before we tell the game to move the character, we then say, "Nah, dude, move Y is 0." So by changing when we're telling the game to move the character, all of a sudden that fits, because before we're reinitializing those variables and everything, we're going up all the way up to the top. Boing. Okay, so we for sure need to modify these variables, because that's like if we want to build a giant spring. Where's our move Y? So minus jump speed divided by 4. Let's say. We get a quarter of a jump. Boink, 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 boink. Okay. So Y is moving correctly. X is not. So move X, value -4. Right. We know this problem. So if it's not equal to 0, we can set it to be move X times -1, right? You know, are we stopping halfway through again? Not really. I can kind of determine my movement much as I want. So this not working. Let's remove breakpoint. Let's set it down here. So let's logic through this again, because I'm pretty sure I've got this very wrong. If your movement is not, if you are moving on the X plane, the X axis at all, then we should reverse that movement. If you are not moving at all, let's just move you backwards. So -4. So what is that code? Move X equals move X times -1. Now, if I was in code, I'd just say move X times equals -1. But relative seems to be just changing it to be adding. You can't do like a multiplication. Okay. So let's debug. Let's see where we're at here. Okay. So move Y currently -4. What? Step into. Now we're drawing. Into. Step into. This is our. Or what are we looking at here? If our instance is at least within 2 pixels of the top of the ground, which is to say 2 pixels under the ground, and I'm sure that's important. I don't incredibly know why, but if we can be up to 2 pixels underground, and then we set our Y speed to 0, saying stop moving up or down at all, and then we're gonna listen for a spacebar to be pressed, and then when spacebar is pressed, set move Y equals to negative jump speed, therefore moving us up. I don't know why we have jump speed set to a whole number. Maybe it's just easier to conceptualize for the people who ran this tutorial. I don't know. So we are now getting hurt. Our invuln is set to 1. So we're gonna skip over this if I step into it, right? Yes. Okay. I need to reset this. Hold on. Excuse you? Debugger? Oh, we're here. Are we here? Let's reset. What is happening? It's enable real-time debugging? Reset? Full crash. All right. Okay. Oh, bring the debugger back. Bug. There we go. Okay, now it's working. So, wait. Why are we initializing MoveX to be 0? Where is this happening? So we're just setting that to be false. So if MoveX equals 0, which is not true. So if, and this is false, so it will skip over this. Because MoveX is not equal to 0. Okay, good. So we jump into our else. So our MoveX should become -4. Great. Then we're going to draw. And then we're going to move and collide. We're going to move the player in the step. Right? This is referring to the player. I figured like go to code or something on here. We're gonna move X and move Y. Y set to -4. And now we're going to change move X again. So, are we setting move Y too? No, we're not. So this move X needs to move inside of the alarm. Check. That's at least a problem. I don't know if that's the entirety of this, but move you down. Excuse you? There we go. All right, let's try this again. So the theory is by moving that down, this is now giving us that full 15 millisecond. You can't do anything time. You're going to move for 15 milliseconds in the opposite direction. Oh, oh! Okay, I still feel we're bouncing too high. But like, nice. Okay, okay. Hey, we're making progress. So let's change the move Y to be even less. Let's half it. Let's go to 8. And then we need to change this. Okay. I have these swaps yet again. How do I keep making this mistake? So if move X is equal to 0, set it to -4. If it's not equal to 0, flip your direction. There we go. There we go. We're bouncing in the other direction. Good. That move is a little too intense for me. The move X. Let's change that to be like -2 and then -0.5. I don't know if that is actually going to do what I want it to do, but let's take a look. Okay, and then if I jump up, yeah. Okay, good. If I have no momentum, I'm moving to the left. Okay, now we probably want that invulnerability to last a little bit longer so we're not like getting chain hit. Let's go to our alarm. And let's set that to like 60. Is that too long? That's going to mean a higher amount of time where the player can't act. Ha! Ha! Okay. Why is the alarm affecting the duration? Oh, man. So now we're waiting 35 milliseconds instead of 15. And it's going to maintain that move and collide every frame with those same variables. So this. So really, so we want another if. Where if alarm get at 0 is greater than 45, then we're going to want to do these things inside of it, but not you. Not you, not you. We just want this, right? And we want move Y. Let's see what that does. Theoretically, I don't have this very solidly in my head, but theoretically, that will mean between 60 milliseconds and 45 milliseconds, treat this arc normally. Okay. Yeah, we're just getting catapulted. So we're saying move x equals move x times move speed. But this is the problem. This is where we're reinitializing it to be a reasonable number, because it's saying move x equals move x times move speed. So it's just getting like set to, so we're moving to the left, so it's at -4. And then it hits the enemy and it flips. So now it's at 4. Now we're saying move x 4 times move speed, which is something. And then each frame, it's getting re-multiplied. Let's just delete that. What happens if we just get rid of that part? Yeah, okay. So we're bouncing back. I'm holding in the right arrow key. And it's got this blocker on it. Ooh. But it's not enough. We need to bounce. We need to make it so that you bounce far enough back that if you are just sprinting forward, you can't glitch your way through enemies using invulnerable time, right? That seems like that would be a good experiential thing, but I'm not totally sure. So we need to increase this move X a smidgen. Let's take that up to 0.75. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely like speeding up over time. Which doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be speeding up. And like if we take it back to 0.5, so why are you speeding up like you are? Yeah, that's like if you're on ice or something. Bounce and slide. Yeah, I just tap. So as soon as I hit the enemy, I'm gonna stop holding in left. So hit stop, and it pushes me all the way over to there. I mean, I guess I can just like fine tune this to be like 0.51, but it just feels really icky. Feels like there's an underlying problem that is not being addressed. Yeah, we're still able to phase through this thing. Okay. I mean, honestly, I kind of like the feel at 0.5. It honestly feels a little too long. The distance feels good, but the time feels off. So let's drop this alarm down to 45. Let's drop it down to 30. Take it back to where it used to be. Yeah, like that amount of delay feels pretty crisp to me. Oh, I'm finding more ways to make this feel better. Oh, man. Okay, so it just dawned on me. This feels weird when you're jumping up onto the enemy and you bounce backwards. And it's feeling like you should bounce forwards off of them if you're like colliding with their top face. And that would be an interesting problem to go in and try to solve. At the same time, I do need to ask myself, is that worth it? Is that worth my time right now? It would be a good thing to practice and a good thing to learn how to do. But are there better things I should be practicing and learning how to do? What's the opportunity cost? I think it's worth it right now. I think I need to diversify knowledge before diving deeper in. I think that's going to be better for my learning. I think I've started to get like some thoughts and ideas of like, oh, these are things I need to be looking out for, and this like we've already made this feel way better than it used to be. But I think I need to start going wider and then let all these problems sit in my brain. And then hopefully, as we keep doing more learning, it'll start working better. That's the theory. That's the theory. All right. Let's see. I think I need to jump to this other tutorial, how to build a level in Windy Woods, or I need to set this aside, save it. Can I rename it in here? All right, I can't. So let's just do a new project, and we'll just start off exactly with what he talks about. We're going to do a brand new Windy Woods platformer game. And we're going to put this We're gonna save it in the right place at the right time. Okay, let's go. Okay. So, we now have all of this stuff that he was talking about. We have enemy 1 with their sprites and everything. Let's bring in enemy 2. Import asset package, yes, at all. Thank you. Import. And now we can follow this tutorial from the correct step. And if we launch the game, it will be a very well, nicely rendered experience. And it would probably be good at some point to go into this and explore it and see, like, how are they doing that little animation, that swooshy swoosh? How are they doing this scene? Is this whole thing just a background, or are they actually layering images to composite this? I know this logo has to be something, but like, is the player sprite something, and then the ground, and then the trees, and then the very far back trees? Is that all different? All right. So we have a beautifully rendered game here. We even have WASD. Oh, we've got a nice particle effect on jump and a jumping animation. Oh, we can break blocks and change the sprite and move the sprite. Then we have this. I wonder what this leaf stuff is. Is this a set? I don't think this is a set sprite that's like animating and playing over and over again, right? This looks to me like they're applying like random directions outside of, what would that be? Random negative directions to the wind, and then moving them, and then adding a trail effect on them. Ooh, it's the gas. It's the gas. All right. Cool. Well, there's all that. So we can follow the tutorial. Go to room level 1. Look at this giant level with a whole bunch of stuff that I do not understand. Like, I'm assuming this is the player camera. It's also interesting. Open editor? Like, touch controls layer. What? Wow. Foliage. Ah, and here are all those individual leaves blowing around. Wow. That's a lot. We have our instances. Here we go. Now I can select all this sort of stuff. Collision tiles. Huh. I don't know what these are. It looks like I'm seeing. Am I seeing stuff repeated? I don't think so. I think each of these tiles is unique, but with like a different face lighting up, and that looks like art. So that doesn't look like a UI thing from GameMaker. That looks like a, this is how the game, how Windy Woods interacts. So we've got, yeah, our sideways blocks that are in the middle. What this guy is, all that sort of stuff. So, oh, we have brushes. Okay. All right, so visuals. I zoom into you. Ah, wow. And that's just hand placed there, huh? My goodness. So we could like change this to be another player sprite, right? There you go. Okay. Cave entry. Oops. Got mounds. Okay. So then we have the end gate, which is up here. It's an object, so there's gonna be a lot of behavioral stuff, like when the player create cleanup draw. Called GPU set blend mode. Comments! That's how comments work! Oh, cool. Okay. Before drawing the end gate itself, we want to draw its inside using the add blend mode so it appears bright. Interesting. So this thing in the center here, this isn't just like a part of the sprite. That is a so there's always a million ways to do stuff, right? So here, instead of swapping out sprites, saying, you know, there's maybe a disabled version of this gate that doesn't have the glowy effect, we're going to set it to the non-glowy sprite, and then when it starts glowing, we'll set it to the glowy sprite. Instead, they're doing these programmatic blending modes. Set blend mode to addition. Okay, we're calling GPU set blend mode function to change the blend mode to add, and that's going to add the colors to each other, effectively making them brighter. Okay? Function call. I bet function call is one of the more useful nodes in the language, and I'm just not using it. And we have draw sprite. This draws the inside part of the end gate. End gate glow. What's end gate glow? Oh. UI. Environment? Interactive? Ah. Oops. End gate. That's what it was. Sprite. Okay. What am I doing? Assets. Sprites. Environment. Interactive. End gate glow. There we go. There's that sprite. Oh, and you know what? Their sprite does have a glow on it. Okay. So is what they're trying to do is like make this thing look like it's glowing? End gate, object end gate. Before drawing the end gate itself, we want to draw its inside using the add blend mode. So it appears bright. We're calling the GPU set blend mode function to change the blend mode to add. GPU set blend mode. So, okay, so live preview. What is this? What is this? GPU set blend mode. But what are you setting? Like, what I'm struggling to understand here is we are setting blend mode to add. But then, like, when is that blend mode getting applied to something? Because then we draw the sprite. Oh, okay. So it's just going to be everything about this object is blend mode add. Then we draw the inside of the gate. So now it has add on it. And then we're setting blend mode to normal and then drawing the rest of the gate. Okay. Got it. So, we hit play, then we try and make it over there. Theoretically, if I'm understanding this right, we're going to see a gate with a glowy, bright, transparent interior, but a normal outline with the kind of like bright glowiness. Aha! There we go. There it is. So boy, that ad is very bright. Honestly, I might tune that down a little bit. But cool. You can go exploring. Hooray! Jump on bad guys. Oh, we've got. Oh, it'd be a good idea to see like, how are they going to do this? If I jump on top of this spike with 0x movement, what's going to happen? Oh, they just warp us back up. Interesting. Feels really chunky. I don't know if that's just like an artifact of it running in the through GameMaker and not through like an executable. Oh, that's interesting. If it's just running through the executable, or if it's because it's just not optimized, and there's stuff about how it is built that doesn't run very well, even on a pretty hefty machine. So, once again, I want to see what happens. If I walk into this guy, what does it feel like? So they just have you slide backwards. Can I time it so that I am in air and running? Well, now it's just gonna kill me. And really, I should like be pulling up. See, and this is once again opportunity cost rearing its ugly head. I need to not focus on all this because it's not really what I'm trying to build. Okay. Sakes alive. Why am I even looking at the gate right now? I mean, we understand how this works now, so that's cool. But why was I looking at the gate? Was it just shiny and interesting? Oh, because I was looking at this layer. Yeah, this end gate layer. I wonder why it's its own layer. And then we have water tiles. Distort 1 speed, distort 2 speed. So is that... Ooh, don't zoom out. Zoom in. That's making it look wavy. That sprite isn't changing at all. They're just kind of wibbly-wobbling it. Okay. So, filter effect underwater. What would happen? So, like, if we did, like, zoom blur, right? This is going to completely destroy it. There we go. If I click on the right thing. So, okay. So, there's, like, a lot of interesting stuff. Pixelate. That's probably what they have on the game over screen is the pixelate filter. So if we go back to underwater, there we go. Oh, and we have a tint, which we probably don't really want. Where's opacity? Is there no opacity? What? Distort texture. And what if we change that to like look like the player? You know, work correctly in game unless a separate texture page option is selected. Huh. So I'm guessing, can I not undo? There we go. If we go all the way back to the first underwater, so we have our glint color. Interesting. Set to 0. And in tint color. Oh. Interesting. I was gonna say, I wonder if these act like masks, where white is on and black is off. That doesn't seem to be the case, though. I guess white means don't do anything, but what happens if you want to tint something white? Like, or is it? Yeah, it looks like it's not doing anything. So if I turn it off, it's not changing any color. Interesting. Chroma spread. Whoa! That's funky. Pretty cool. Camera offset scale, distort 2 amount. Wow! Cool. So yeah, this distort texture is just a noise pattern just to randomize it a little bit, make it feel different. And then I guess the distort amounts are what delta there can be in the movement, and then the distort speed is how fast. Yeah. So it's moving really fast over a small amount of space, but we can change that space to be really big, and then change the speed to be really small. Right? Okay. Okay. Cave spikes. Zoom out. Cave tiles. Trees. So this is this tree, right? Let's change the sprite real quick. There we go. Now we got that guy. All right. So yeah, all of this is like layered. And then we have back trees as just a straight up image. If we turn that off, yeah, there we go. And it looks like it doesn't look like there's an effect being applied to it in the editor, but in the background, it definitely looks blurred. Why? uh, Can we find this in the background? Okay, back trees too. Edit image. Are you blurry? I guess you are kind of blurry. And then back trees 1. This should be the real teller. Yeah, that's pretty blurry. Okay. I thought they were doing some processing on it. Looks like they're doing the processing on the sprite beforehand. Then we have back clouds. Oh, so even these aren't a part of things. So are they gonna move? Animation speed 1. These are all sprites. They're not objects. So there's no behavior attached to them. So if they have an animation, it wouldn't... Yeah, so there's no animation, but if they had an animation, it wouldn't move them across the sky. So these clouds have got to just stay where they are, right? And then we have back sky, which is bright sky? Oh, Sprite Sky is a very thin vertical slice. A 1 pixel wide slice of sky. Oh man. So it's a gradient color from that really bright teal all the way up to that blue. Width 1 pixel, height 900. And then hilarious. And then they just horizontally tile it. So if we remove that horizontal tile, there will be a 1 pixel wide slice of sky somewhere over here. Oh man. If we do stretch, it's going to be nearly the same thing. Isn't that interesting? But not. I wonder if that means it's stretching to like go further down than it was supposed to. Because it's like 900 pixels from here to like maybe here-ish or something. And if we're stretching it, it might be stretching it from here all the way down to the bottom of the room. Oh, not X. I don't care about X. I'm trying to test my theory. I want to see like how high up until we stop getting things. And if I click stretch, yeah, it goes all the way down. So if we go to like negative 200, yeah. So they've clipped it pretty close. Pretty close to that tree line there. That's interesting. All right. So we're just kind of playing around and seeing how they have built things and letting that sit in our brain grapes. Of these objects with nothing in them. Stop leaf effect. I wonder if it's like a collision mask. Like if that collides with something. Effect leaf. Wind blown particles. In game only. Whoa, look at that number of particles. 60, spawn time 1000, spawn all at start, warm-up frames, mass, sprite scale, color, initial velocity, rotation speed. Align with velocity, lifetime, update skip, spawn border margin, source blend, death blend, trail. Draw the trails, spawn chance 40%. So not all of them have trails? How long they stick around for, how thick the trails are, what color they are. You can do maybe gradients with color 1, 2, 3, 4. Minimum segment length. Blower, number of blowers, so that's how it's getting like the kind of multi-directionality of it. Rotation speed, negative 180 to 180. Man, and then physics, force grid resolution, wind force, particle drag, gravity. Wow. So, question then, is wind-blown particles something they built in GameMaker, or is it something that Windy Woods built? Let's take a look. Yes, I would like to... Okay, let's refresh. There we go. Wind-blown particles is an effect. Okay. So it's a thing. This is built in. Cool. All right. Right on. Now that we've spent an hour and a half dinking around doing a bunch of stuff that did not materially contribute to building a game, let's build a game.
Instead of walking normally, we'll jump towards the player, who can then either jump on top of it to defeat it or go below it. Create a new project and use the Windy Woods template, give it a name here, and click on Let's Go. You need some assets for this tutorial, so go ahead and download them from the link in the description. Then in GameMaker, go under Tools, click on Import Local Package, and then select the asset package that you just downloaded. You will see this, where you just need to click on Add All and then Import. Create a new object and name this obj underscore enemy 2. I'll drag it and put it inside objects, characters, and enemies. This is the same place where we have our first enemy object. Now in the object editor, set the sprite for your new object to SPR enemy 2 walk. The character system used in this project uses GameMaker's parenting system where one object can be the parent of another object. The child object then gets all the behavior of the parent object. So open the parent menu, then click here, set the parent for this object to obj_enemy_parent. That object has all the code that handles the movement and interactions of the enemy. Now in your asset browser, under Rooms, open RM Level 1, which is the first level in this project. In the Layers panel, make sure the Instances layer is selected, and then from the asset browser, drag your obj_enemy2 object and put it here somewhere in front of the player for easy testing. Run the game and you will now see your new enemy walking around. This is because of the parent object, which already has the code for all this. If you try to defeat it though, you'll see this. This is
Okay, challenge accepted. Let's see what we find. Yeah, play. Okay, so he's walking towards us. Instantly kills us. But doesn't reset our health or anything and keeps our player in. So that's...
This is happening because our new enemy doesn't know which object to create when it's defeated. So by default, it creates the player's defeated object, and that's why we see the player being defeated and the level also restarts. Now in the asset browser under enemies, you'll see there is a defeated object for enemy 1. So let's duplicate this and change the 1 to a 2. Also make sure you remove the number at the end. Now open this object and change its sprite to SPR enemy 2 defeated. So we now have a defeated object for our new enemy, but we still need to tell the enemy object itself to use this object when it's defeated. So open the obj_enemy2 object. Here you will see some events that are taken from the parent object. You can extend an event by inheriting it. So right click on the create event and inherit it. This event runs whenever the instance is created.
There's no such thing as a perfect pet. Or a perfect pet parent. But
now if you're using GML visual, look to this side, and if you're using GML code, then look here. In this event, we'll simply set a variable called defeated_object. This variable stores the object that will be created when this character is defeated. Set this to obj_enemy2_defeated. Make sure you write the names of the variables and the object properly, otherwise you'll get an error. In game, you will now be able to defeat the enemy properly.
Okay, so what are we doing here? What? Hold on. That turned red? It is turning red. Why is it turning red? How bizarre. Oh. Because I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's why. I put the purple on the enemy 1 defeated, and I put the red on the enemy 2 defeated. There we go. That should fix it. It's getting a little late tonight. There we go. Right on. Okay, so what this is doing, show parent event, is we're setting their damage to 1. We are setting the move speed. So they're half as fast as we are. We are telling it to choose a number between moving left or right at random, and target is velocity x. Applies either move speed or negative move speed to the enemy's x velocity. This way the enemy will either move left or right at random. Enemy's x velocity. Okay. I'm assuming that's the same thing as like move x that we were playing with in our old version. Then sets the friction to 0 so the enemy never comes to a stop. Okay. So they're going to move in a random direction forever. And then, in the begin step, set grounded. Oh, so we're checking the collision. So, with this function call, we are checking if there is a collision 1 pixel below the character. This means the character is standing on ground. We're doing this in the begin step event, so the events that run later, step and end step, know whether the player is on ground or not. The result of the function, true or false, is stored in the grounded variable, which was initiated in the create event. Is grounded a GameMaker thing? Because if not, then it definitely isn't being created. GameMaker grounded. Okay. So, you're saying it was created in the create event. I see no grounded variable. The parent event. Let's just go to straight to the source. Oh. Character parent. Interesting. And then enemy parent is inheriting. So character parent is setting grounded. Okay. And then enemy parent inherits from that, and then specific enemies inherit from that. Okay. Head back up here. So in the begin step, we're saying, is this character on the ground or not? And if it is, and then store that result in the grounded variable, which is set in the character parent. I wish it would say in which thing it was created, but whatever. If grounded is true, name grounded x, value x, grounded y, value y. And live preview this. If grounded equals true, grounded x equals x, grounded y equals y. This stores the character's current position in the grounded x and grounded y variables. Since these variables are only changed when the character is on ground, they only store the position for when the character was last on ground. These values can then be used to restore the player's position after it falls off a platform into a pit. There we go. That's it. Fall into a bottomless pit, where do we put you if we needed to? So it's kind of what I've been talking about before, of like clocking what state the player was in before something bad happens so you can restore it. Cool, interesting. If variable. In this part, we are applying friction to the player's velocity, so it eventually comes to a stop when there is no input. So it eventually comes to a stop when there's no input. And this is how you would probably code in like ice and stuff, is you change this friction value. This action rounds the x velocity to the nearest integer. Then it checks if that integer is not 0. This means there is an active velocity, or more than 0.5 pixels in either direction. Yeah, sure, because it's rounding to the nearest integer. So, if not, rounded velocity x equals 0. So, if rounded velocity of x equals 0, and if it's not that, so if velocity x rounded to the nearest integer is not equal to 0, that's such a weird way to write that. I don't know why you wouldn't say if round velocity x not equal 0, instead of if not round velocity x equals 0, unless you were having a variable or something to store that whole expression. I don't know, it seems weird. It may just be an artifact of the GML, I don't know. So if we still have velocity. Apply friction equal to positive or negative velocity x times friction power. Here we calculate the friction that should be applied by this frame. It's calculated by multiplying the sine of the x velocity, which will be -1 or 1, with the friction power. The result is stored in a temporary variable. Right, so this is locally scoped to variable if, and so that's where we were getting coached a while back that this should have an underscore in front of it, right? That should be an underscore, which it won't let me apply because it's read-only mode. So we're storing friction applied in which direction? In which direction is friction acting against the player? Because if they're moving left, that friction needs to move right. If they're moving right, that friction needs to move left. If expression, this checks if the character is not grounded, meaning it's in midair. In that case, we want to reduce the friction that is applied, so in midair, the player takes more time to slow down. So, if you're not grounded, which means if you're in the air, friction applied. Oh, interesting. So they're not applying the friction here. They're just modifying the variable that will apply it. Okay, and this is all very clever programming here. Not that I would really know, but it's more clever than I would be. I would be like rewriting whole functions in each of these if statements, I'm sure. So if they're in the air, quarter the amount of friction that gets applied to them. And then we are modifying the velocity by the negative friction applied. So what that's saying is friction applied should always be a positive number. So we are subtracting friction applied from velocity x to become the new velocity x. Else, which is to say there is no x velocity because we are saying rounded velocity x is equal to 0, which means the player has effectively stopped. Or at least you're near to stopping, or you're like barely doing anything, then just set the player to stop. Set velocity to 0. Then we are doing this thing down below. This adds the grav speed value to the velocity y variable. Doing so applies the gravity to the character's vertical velocity, pulling it down each frame to make it fall. Sure. Because once again, higher y values, contrary to math, means down in GameMaker. We're saying descend at this speed. Okay? That's a begin step. And I don't quite know when to use begin step, step, and end step. I am somewhat wondering if begin step and end step would have factored into the problem we were running earlier of like assigning variables before they were running. Like we could run the movement in the begin step and then assign variables in the step and then in the end step. Dude, I don't know. I don't think I'm quite right on that, but I think there's something there. Okay, declare temp. The section below handles pixel perfect collision checking. It does collision checking twice, first on the x-axis and then on the y-axis. On each axis, it moves the character pixel by pixel until its velocity for that axis is covered, or a collision is found. Velocity for that axis is covered. I'm not quite sure what that means. I'm assuming that that means, like, if we can tell that the next frame, the velocity will push this thing past another thing, maybe? Move count is how many total pixels the character needs to move this frame. It is the absolute value of the velocity on an axis. Right, an absolute value, so like, if your move speed is negative, so you're moving left, you don't want your move count to be negative. Then that would be pushing you in the opposite direction. You want the absolute value, which is distance from 0. Positive or negative, doesn't matter. Move once is the amount of pixels it needs to move once before checking for a collision. It is 1, 0, or -1. Because it's the sine of velocity x. So if you're standing still, it's 0. If you're moving to the right, it's 1. If you're moving to the left, it's -1. And so variable move once is going to get passed in as an argument into some sort of move thing to say, move once by count, and then check if we are colliding. That doesn't seem like you're moving pixel by pixel. That would be like moving frame by frame. That wouldn't be making sense, because for every pixel you move, you would then be moving X count pixels. Which doesn't make sense. So my logic is bad on this. Let's see what happens here. Repeat. This runs a loop, which runs move count times, which will be 1, 0, or -1 times. All actions attached to this are repeated that many amount of times. Oh, wait, no, move count and move once. Right, so move count. So if your velocity is 4, like ours was before, then this will run 4 times. This language is a little confusing. I'm going to jump to our documentation here. Let's go to repeat. This action will repeat any actions added to it, the number of times specified. If you give the number of times that the actions are to be repeated, and then add the action to the repeat loop. Much as you would an action to an if, all actions added to the side will be included in the repeat, over times a whole integer value. Okay. So, repeat, size, times. So, the reason I'm getting confused by this is it sounds in the documentation like it's saying it will run this loop that amount of times, and everything inside of that loop will also run that many times for each time you go through the loop. And that doesn't seem right. Like, it's got to be just it goes through the loop that many times, right? Which means that the stuff inside of the loop will run as many times as the loop runs. Above action block code gets the number of items in a list and stores the value in a temporary local variable size. This variable is then used to set the number of times that a repeat loop is run, and in the repeat loop, the entries from the list are read into another temporary variable, inst, which then used to destroy the instances that they reference. After the loop is finished, the data structure is freed. Boy, this is a lot that I do not understand. Destroy inst on inst. Get list item. Man, I really wish we could see the code. But I have to imagine this is not a repeat. I guess the problem is I don't really understand what get list does. All right, whatever. Let's keep going. So it's going to repeat for our speed, the absolute value of our speed. And function call. This calls the check collision function to check for collisions on the x-axis, if moved by the move once value on that dimension. The y argument is set to 0, so for this collision, there is no y movement. The result of the function, either true or false, is stored in the collision found variable, which is temporary. Function call. This calls the check collision function to check for collisions on the x-axis. So variable collision found equals check collision move once 0. So we are checking a collision within move once, which is either -1, 0, or 1. If it is within that, whatever one is passed into there. And y, so if x within the, so if within the variable move once of x and within y of 0, if there is a collision within that space, set it to true or false appropriately. Then if collision found is false, x plus equals move once. Else, velocity of x is 0. Because you have collided. You are done. You stop. and then break. You don't need to repeat anymore. Okay, that makes sense to me. So x plus equals move once, and then we repeat back, and we repeat that for every move count. So move count is the amount of pixels moved per frame. So for every pixel that's moved per frame, check this. So I guess the thought is it will... Where's my brain getting hung up here? Saying repeat move count. But then how does it know how to distribute that move count? Over what time frame? I guess that doesn't incredibly matter. It'll probably be less than a frame. And the X movement doesn't happen until we tell it to on line 43 here, where we say X plus equals move once. And then we kick out, and then we'll hit this, and it will make sure that it's doing this move count amount of times per frame. And every time we move a pixel, it refreshes this, because move count equals the amount of frames, the amount of pixels to move per frame. Okay, I feel like I need a whiteboard to like sketch out that relationship to really solidify it in my head. And I've got my iPad and I could do it, but it's very late and we're trying to wrap up the stream. Heavens to Betsy, it's late. And then we have declare temporary variables. We now repeat all of the previous steps to check for collisions on the y-axis. Right, that's why we're setting the y to 0 up here, because we want this to be pixel by pixel perfect. So we're only checking on the x-axis, and then we're only checking it on the y-axis. Okay. Move count equals absolute value y, move once equals plus y. So if you're not moving vertically at all, this will not run. It will not repeat. But if you are, it's going to do the exact same thing, where it's going to check if the collision is found within 0x and plus 1, 0, or negative 1 of move once equal to the sign of your velocity. And then, now that's interesting. You could theoretically have a move count of like 1,000,000 and a move once of 0. No, you can't. You can't. Because if your sign of velocity of y is 0, that means velocity of y is 0, which is, spoiler alert, 0 far away from 0. So its absolute would be 0, meaning this repeat never happens. Got it. So it's either going to be 1 or negative 1 once it's inside here. And if the collision found is false, we can continue to move in the direction that move once is telling us to. Otherwise, we set our vertical velocity to 0, and got it. Making sense. Then we have our end step. What's our end step? We're in the end step, yes. Okay. Section below handles pixel perfect collision checking. Let's click. I don't know that we got into a new thing. Yes, okay. This runs the parent's end step event. The rest of the event is concerned with making the enemy turn, either when it hits a wall or finds a ledge. Okay, so when we said before, it's going to pick a random direction and move in perpetuity, that is true until this happens at the end of the step. So at the end of the frame, it's going to check. Now that movement is done, are we hitting a wall? Have we hit a wall? Are we going to walk off the edge of a cliff? If so, reverse your direction. Okay. This action calls the check collision function. It looks for a wall collision where the enemy is walking. We multiply the velocity x by 4 to look for a wall. So we're looking ahead 4 times by the amount the enemy will move this frame. The result, true or false, is stored in a temporary variable. So if we can detect a collision within 4 frames, essentially. If there's a collision 4 frames from now, then change the variable. So they're not walking all the way up to the wall, smacking it, and then turning around. They're getting up like close and then turning. Here we're looking for a ledge by checking for a collision 32 times ahead where the enemy is moving. However, this time the Y offset is set to 64, so it's looking for a collision 64 pixels below where the enemy would. If a collision is not found there, it means that position has no ground for the enemy to walk on. Okay, so with each of these squares being 32 pixels tall, what we're saying is if an enemy walks here and then does not collide with anything down here, then that means there's no ground for this player to walk on. Right? We're looking 1 square ahead, and then 64 pixels down. We're looking right there. But does that mean that they could keep walking off of a 1 tile, like... so here, they would turn around, right? Because down 2, there's nothing to collide with. But if this floor were up to here, would enemies just walk over it? And also, this makes sense if we're talking about pixels, but I don't think we're talking about pixels. We're talking about your velocity times 32, and your velocity is the amount of pixels to be moved in 1 frame. So we're looking 32 frames ahead, which is like a half a second. So I'm not quite understanding that. If expression, this checks if a collision was not found there, meaning we've hit a ledge. If there's no ground ahead, this ensures the enemy is grounded, so the enemies in midair do not turn. If grounded, sure, and we're inheriting that from the character parent, velocity x minus decrements by itself. Or no, it doesn't decrement by itself. What am I saying? It flips in polarity, so they will change direction. I'm still not quite understanding this collision check. Yeah, either here or here. If object at place, this checks if there is another enemy where this enemy is moving. This is used to make the enemy turn if it runs into another enemy, so they don't pass through each other. So equals instance place x plus velocity x, and once again, why are we doing times 16? I don't understand where these numbers are coming from. So if they're on the same x plane, but a little bit further ahead, on the same y level as you, and you are hitting any type of enemy parent inherited object, if that is true, then turn. Okay, got it.
It does still have the default walking behavior, so let's make it so it only moves by jumping towards the player. So go back to your new obj enemy 2 object and open its create event. Here, let's first set the variable well underscore x to 0. This variable stores the x or horizontal velocity of the character. So if you set that to 0, it won't move horizontally. Then we'll set the animation speed of the character to 0 because it's not walking, so the animation also should not play.
Fair.
Finally, we are setting alarm 0 to 30. What this means is that the event called alarm 0 will run after 30 frames. In that event, we're gonna make the enemy jump, and we'll run it again and again to make the enemy jump repeatedly. Now add a new event.
Okay, so I'm getting an error on mine. Or are you not getting an error on yours? November of 2022. So it's a year old. So we do alarm set 0 0. Are we happy now? Reference to non-existent event alarm 0. The alarm index to set from 0 to 11. Value of an integer to set the alarm to. Okay, so 30. Good. Reference to non-existent event alarm 0. Why? Maybe if we like add an event of like listening to alarm 0, maybe that will clear this up.
To make the enemy jump repeatedly. Now add a new event, which will be alarm 0. In this event, we want the enemy to jump towards the player.
There we go. Now that we've created that alarm 0 event listener, this is now totally cool with it. Got it.
First, add a new condition to check if the player does not exist in the room. In that case, exit the event. This means the event will stop here and the rest of the code will not run. We are doing this so that if the player doesn't exist, meaning they've been defeated, then the enemy should not jump towards the player because there is no player. If you didn't do this, you'd get an error because the enemy would try to find the player even when it doesn't exist. Now after the conditions block is over, set the vel underscore y variable to -21. This is the vertical velocity of the character. -21 will be the force applied for the jump, so you can put in a different number here to change how high the enemy jumps. Next here we are creating a local variable called jumpx which stores this. Here we are getting the horizontal distance from the enemy to the player and then getting its sign.
So this is just telling us which direction to jump in, right?
The sign will either be 1 or -1 unless the actual value is 0, when the sign will also be 0. So depending on whether the player is to the right or to the left of the enemy, you will get 1 or -1, which will then be stored in jumpx. After that, we are multiplying that value by 4 and then applying the result to the x velocity so the enemy starts moving in that direction. You can change 4
And that's moving at the speed that the player.
to something else to make it move faster or slower. Finally, we are telling alarm 0 to run again after 60 frames, which is 1 second by default.
So when it starts, it does it in a half second, and then it'll run every second thereafter.
This alarm 0 event will run again after a second, and then it will run again and again, making the enemy jump repeatedly. You can change 60 to something else to change how often this enemy jumps. Now if you run the game, you'll see the enemy jumping towards the player, so our code is working, but there is a problem. It doesn't stop once it lands on the ground.
Are we setting the x velocity to 0? Yeah. Okay.
It keeps moving. So let's fix that. In your enemy object, right-click on the begin step event and inherit it. This event runs every frame and it runs before the main step event. In the event, we'll check if the grounded variable is true. This means that the character is standing on the ground. In that case, we'll set well underscore x.
And this is where having read through all the code and stuff on our own helps, because this makes perfect intuitive sense to us right now.
To 0, so the character stops moving horizontally. Run the game.
Okay. Hot dog.
And its movement will now be perfect. It moves only when it's in mid-air, and on touching the ground, it stops. You can now experiment.
Hot dog! Hey, look at that! Today, we added a new enemy type. I want to make sure it's going to change its direction. There it goes. Hot diggity dog. Woo! Go team. We learned a lot today. We played around a bunch, and we didn't make a ton of material progress on many things. But you know what? We're kind of getting more and more familiar with the tool, and I think that's a big, big deal. So thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. I know that I certainly did. We'll see you tomorrow.